The night was restless. Heavy rain poured down, drenching the silent streets of Stonebrook. Headlights flickered across slick pavement, and thunder rolled like a warning no one wanted to hear. But what happened next would make even the strongest heart stop. A young woman leaned against her sleek black car, the hood shimmering under the storm. Her clothes were elegant, pressed far too fine for this part of town. Yet her presence was not the crime. Her only fault was the color of her skin. "Stay down where you belong," Officer Carter hissed, his voice sharp with contempt. He pressed his knee hard into her back, pinning her against the vehicle. The woman gasped for air, her cheek scraping against cold metal as raindrops streamed into her eyes. Beside him, Officer Hayes smirked, gripping her arm tight enough to bruise. Her designer purse spilled onto the ground, its contents scattering into muddy puddles. A notebook, a fountain pen, a government-issued phone glowing faintly with an incoming call. None of it mattered to them. They didn't see her as a person. They only saw a target. Driving through Stonebrook while black, Carter sneered. Big mistake. His baton cracked down across her shoulder, a sharp sound echoing in the empty street. The woman bit back a cry, her voice breaking as she tried to speak. "Please, shut up," Hayes barked, shoving her head down into the filthy water pooling by the curb. The storm washed over her like punishment. Her expensive jacket clung to her skin. Her knees sank deeper into the muck, and still, her composure didn't fully break. Beneath the pain, she held on to something the officers couldn't see. Something that would soon turn their world upside down, because on her hand was a ring, a polished silver emblem etched with symbols that only a select few could earn. The graduation band from the National Police Academy, the same academy where she once stood at the top of her class, the same academy where Carter and Hayes had barely scraped by. They didn't notice it now. Too busy laughing, too sure of their power. They thought they had found easy prey. But in truth, they had just shackled themselves to the very storm they feared most. And tomorrow, when the truth surfaced, their smirks would vanish. Earlier that week, this woman had stood alone in her hotel room, her suitcase still half unpacked. Her name was Maya Brooks, and she wasn't just another face in the city. She had been summoned here with a mission. The email from the commissioner glowed on her laptop screen. Stonebrook's 7th precinct holds the highest number of excessive force complaints in the state. We need you. Bring order. Bring change. Maya closed the file with a sigh. She had seen this pattern too many times before. A department infected with corruption. A culture where cruelty was disguised as discipline. They needed a reformer. And that was exactly what she was, but she knew better than to step in blindly. These men wore masks of obedience whenever authority loomed. She would never see their true selves if they knew who she was from the start. So she devised a plan. Her first week she would remain hidden. No uniforms, no rank, no authority. Just an observer in civilian clothes. Quiet, unremarkable, but watchful. Dark jeans, a tailored coat, a notebook always within reach. Every night she would drive through neighborhoods, wealthy ones, poor ones, and those in between. She would study how the officers treated people, who they stopped, and how they justified it. Because knowledge is power, and Maya intended to gather every ounce of it before making her move. Meanwhile, Carter and Hayes prowled the rain-soaked streets in their patrol car, sipping cheap coffee, their eyes hunting for trouble. The neighborhood of Oakdale was quiet, lined with manicured lawns and gated homes. A place where suspicion always fell on anyone who didn't belong. Another boring night, Hayes muttered, tossing his empty cup aside. Then he noticed it, a black sedan gliding slowly down Maple Street, stopping here, pulling over there, headlights glowing against the storm. Check that out, Hayes nudged Carter. Someone casing houses. Carter leaned forward, squinting through the rain. Inside the sedan, a woman tapped notes into her phone, her face calm, her movements precise. Definitely not from around here, Carter said, already flipping on the dash cam. Let's see what she's up to. Maya Brooks knew she was being followed. She had seen this pattern before, the tailing car, the waiting game. Officers circling like vultures, ready to pounce on the smallest excuse. She pulled calmly into a legal parking spot, hoping to finish her observations. But as she predicted, the patrol lights flashed instantly, cutting through the storm like a trap snapping shut. Maya inhaled slowly. Her hand brushed the edge of her purse where her credentials lay. She could reveal herself. She could end this, but a question tugged at her mind. What would they do if her badge didn't protect her? What would they do if she were just another woman alone in the rain? The answer came the moment Officer Carter unholstered his taser. Step out of the vehicle. Now! The rain hammered against the pavement as Maya opened her car door with steady precision. She stepped out, her clothes instantly soaked through, but her expression calm and unwavering. "Good evening, officers. Is there a problem?" she asked, her voice level, controlled, almost too professional for the scene unfolding. Carter circled her like a wolf sizing up prey. "What are you doing in this neighborhood?" "I'm new in town," Maya replied, keeping eye contact. "Just learning the layout, getting familiar with different areas." Hayes gave a short laugh. "Yeah, right. People like you don't just familiarize themselves with Oakdale unless they're looking for something to steal." Their words dripped with coded meaning. Not subtle, not accidental. Every syllable carried the weight of prejudice. Maya caught every shade of it. She had studied men like them her whole career. They wore badges as if they were shields from accountability, treating authority as permission to abuse. "I assure you I'm not doing anything illegal," Maya said firmly. "I was simply making notes about the community. I'm looking to relocate for work. ID." "Now," Carter snapped, hand twitching near his holster. Maya moved slowly, her hand drifting toward her purse. "My identification isn't—" Before she could finish, Hayes grabbed her arm, yanking her back with unnecessary force. "Hands where we can see them." He barked, slamming her against the side of the car. Her phone and wallet tumbled from her jacket pocket, landing in the rain. "That's my identification right there," Maya said, pointing calmly toward the wallet. "If you'll just—" Carter kicked it away, sliding it under the vehicle. "We'll get to that. First, you're going to explain what you're really doing here." The rain poured harder, streams of water running down her face. Curtains shifted in nearby houses as neighbors peeked out, watching but saying nothing. Maya's voice didn't waver. "I work in law enforcement." The two officers froze for a split second before bursting into mocking laughter. "Law enforcement?" Carter sneered. "Maybe mall security?" "Yeah," Hayes added, grinning. "Watching the perfume counter at some department store." "Don't try to play dress-up with us," she didn't respond. She just memorized their badge numbers, their unit identifiers, every word, every act of misconduct. Her mind worked like a camera, clicking each frame into permanent memory. "Hands behind your back," Hayes ordered, pulling out his cuffs. The steel snapped cold against her wrists, tightened deliberately until the edges cut into her skin. "On your knees," Carter commanded. "That's not necessary," Maya replied calmly. "I'm complying fully." Carter shoved her shoulder, forcing her down. Her knees struck the pavement with a jolt of pain that shot through her body. Water soaked her slacks instantly, and the beam of their flashlight stabbed into her eyes, blinding her. "Please retrieve my identification," Maya requested, voice still steady despite the pain. "You'll see I'm not a threat." The baton struck her shoulder without warning. Not enough to disable, but enough to hurt, enough to humiliate. "You don't make demands here," Carter growled. Maya's body flinched, but her composure remained. Inside, her mind recorded again. Unprovoked physical strike, excessive restraint, deliberate humiliation. Hayes radioed dispatch. "Run this plate. Vehicle possibly stolen." A crackle came back moments later. "Plate registered to Maya Brooks, issued in Virginia 3 years ago." No flags. Instead of backing off, Carter muttered just loud enough for her to hear. "Fake registration. Or the car's stolen." A second patrol car rolled past, slowing. Sergeant Miller leaned out his window. "Everything under control here?" Maya looked up, rain dripping down her face. "Sir, I've done nothing wrong." "These officers—" "We're good," Carter interrupted quickly. "Just handling a suspicious person. Possible theft." Miller nodded without looking twice at Maya. "Need backup?" "No, we got this," Hayes replied with a smirk. The sergeant drove away without a second thought. Maya watched him leave, adding another name to her mental file. Supervisory neglect. Failure to intervene. The rot ran deeper than Carter and Hayes. It was systemic. The storm showed no mercy, plastering her clothes to her skin as Hayes leaned close, shining his flashlight across her body with an unsettling slowness. "Cold, are we?" he mocked. "Should have thought about that before you wandered into the wrong place." As Maya shifted uncomfortably on the ground, her sleeve slid back, revealing the silver ring on her hand. The gleam caught Hayes's eye. "Where'd you get that?" he asked suspiciously. Maya raised her chin, voice steady. I earned it, he scoffed. Looks fake. Costume jewelry. Playing cop won't help you. But deep down, both men felt a flicker of unease. Something about her calm, her knowledge. Her quiet authority didn't match their assumption of helplessness. And tomorrow, when the truth came out, that unease would turn into dread. Would you believe how fast arrogance crumbles when men who think they hold all the power realize they've chained themselves to the very storm they should fear? The precinct was buzzing under fluorescent lights when Maya was finally dragged inside, wrists still cuffed, her elegant suit stained and heavy with rain. She was left chained to a metal bench in the processing area, officers passing by without a word. Some gave her curious looks, others ignored her completely, but none offered help. Hours slipped by as she sat in silence, observing everything. Every conversation, every careless laugh, every protocol ignored. She memorized it all. Which officers cracked jokes at detainees' expense? Which ones looked the other way? Which few showed discomfort but stayed silent? This was her field study in its purest form. Name, the processing officer finally asked, not even lifting his eyes from the screen. Maya Brooks, she answered, calm as ever. Address? I'm relocating. Temporary stay at the Crescent Hotel. The officer's brow arched slightly. That's a pretty high-end place for someone casing houses. I wasn't casing houses, Maya corrected smoothly. And I'd like my phone call now, the officer chuckled. You'll get it when we're ready. We're backed up tonight. Another violation logged in her mind. Denial of due process. Hours later, well past midnight, she was finally allowed a call. Instead of a lawyer, she dialed the commissioner directly. When he answered, her words carried the code they had agreed upon during her hiring. The Horizon audit has begun ahead of schedule, she said evenly. There are already several quality control issues. Code Amber. The commissioner's tone hardened. Location? 7th Precinct. Officers Carter and Hayes. Understood. Extraction within the hour. Maintain protocol. She hung up, sliding the receiver back into place, and noticed the desk sergeant staring at her. Something in her calmness unsettled him. The way she stood straight despite her disheveled state. The way she spoke with deliberate precision. It didn't fit the picture of a common detainee. Half an hour later, a call came in. The sergeant picked it up, listened, then turned toward her with a strange look. You're being released. No charges, just like that. No explanation, no apology. Her belongings returned in a plastic bag, her dignity still stolen. Maya stepped out into the pre-dawn darkness, her body aching, her wrists raw from the cuffs. Back at her hotel, she peeled off her wet clothes, revealing bruises darkening across her shoulder, her arms, her knees. She photographed each one with clinical precision. Then she opened her laptop and began typing, recording every detail while her memory was still sharp. Her federal credentials gave her access to sealed files, and there they were. Reports on Carter and Hayes, 6 excessive force complaints in the last 2 years, all mysteriously closed. Each marked with the signature of a captain who had conveniently retired. Each buried by internal affairs, but the names repeated. Sergeant Miller appeared in 3 of those files, his sign-off preventing action every time. The corruption wasn't limited to Carter and Hayes. It was wider, deeper, systemic. Maya traced a bruise on her shoulder, wincing slightly, before her expression hardened into resolve. I wasn't planning to start this way, she whispered, but they've just handed me the proof I needed. When morning came, Carter and Hayes swaggered into the precinct laughing, coffee in hand. You should have seen her face, Carter boasted to a small crowd of colleagues. Soaked in the rain trying to tell us she was some kind of cop. Hayes mimicked Maya's kneeling position, drawing more laughter. She was casing houses, no doubt. Probably had a crew waiting. Their words spread through the room like poison, and yet not a single officer challenged them, except one. Officer Daniels, a rookie still on probation, remained silent. His eyes darted between them, discomfort clear on his face. But he said nothing. Not yet. Across town, Maya sat in the commissioner's office, sliding a tablet across his desk. On it were photographs of her bruises and her detailed report. The commissioner's face darkened as he scrolled. I knew the 7th had issues, but this is why you brought me here, Maya said, finishing his sentence. What happened to me isn't unique. It's their standard procedure. He exhaled slowly, his respect for her growing. We should press charges immediately. Not yet, Maya replied. This gives us something better. Authentic evidence of their behavior when they think no one is watching. I want to build reform on this foundation, not just take down 2 officers. The commissioner nodded. What's your plan? I need 3 days, enough to map the patterns, identify which officers can be saved and which need to be cut. By the end of the week, I'll know who's loyal to the badge and who's loyal only to power. He gave her full authority, whatever she needed. But when Maya returned to her hotel that afternoon, she noticed the door slightly ajar. Inside, her belongings had been disturbed. Nothing stolen, but everything touched. A warning. Checking the hallway cameras through the hotel system, she discovered a gap in the footage. 8 minutes erased. The exact window when she had been meeting with the commissioner. Her arrest record from the night before would have revealed her hotel. Someone inside the department had sent a message. Her phone buzzed with a new text. Anonymous. Threatening. Back off or next time you won't walk away. Instead of fear, Maya felt her determination sharpen. Every threat was proof of how deep the rot ran, and she would drag it into the light, no matter how hard it fought to stay hidden. Would you believe how quickly the hunters become the hunted when corruption underestimates the resolve of the one person it tried to break? Maya made her next move with surgical precision. That afternoon, she walked into the Internal Affairs Division, not as the incoming captain, but under the guise of a civilian oversight specialist. Her credentials had been crafted carefully, backed by authorization from the commissioner himself. I'm here to evaluate your complaint procedures, she explained smoothly to Lieutenant Barnes, who greeted her with practiced politeness. I'd like to review how excessive force complaints have been handled in the past 18 months. Barnes hesitated. His eyes flickered with something she recognized immediately, wariness. Those files require clearance. I have it, Maya said, sliding the commissioner's authorization across the desk. Reluctantly, Barnes gave her access to the digital archives. As Maya sifted through the records, her suspicion hardened into certainty. Complaints didn't vanish on their own. They were dismantled piece by piece. Witness statements rewritten, body camera footage corrupted, medical reports minimized, and the same names kept appearing. Carter, Hayes, Miller, and a dozen others, all still on active duty, many even commended for so-called proactive policing. The corruption wasn't a series of mistakes. It was a system, a machine designed to protect the abusers and silence their victims. Meanwhile, across town, Carter and Hayes were unraveling. Their usual swagger was shadowed by unease. She said she was law enforcement, Carter muttered as they patrolled the quiet streets. What if she wasn't lying? So what? Hayes scoffed, though his voice betrayed doubt. Nobody's going to believe her over us. But Carter wasn't convinced. We should run her name through the system. With Miller's approval, they launched an unauthorized background check. The results were incomplete, restricted by federal security blocks, but what slipped through was enough to rattle them. Maya Brooks, former military police, federal law enforcement credentials, agency unspecified. She could be Internal Affairs, Miller whispered, rubbing his temple. Or worse, Justice Department. Hayes swallowed hard. We didn't do anything wrong. You struck her with a baton, Miller shot back. Was that in your report? Silence stretched between them. Then Carter spoke the words they all feared. We need to make sure she drops this. Otherwise we're done. They didn't know that Maya was already watching them. From an unmarked car across the street, her telephoto lens captured the 3 men huddled together, their nervous body language betraying them. She documented their routes, their deviations, their patterns of harassment. She also noticed something different. Officer Daniels, the rookie, never followed the aggressive playbook. He treated every citizen the same, regardless of appearance. She marked him as a potential ally. The next morning, Maya returned to Oakdale openly, no longer bothering to conceal her presence. She parked her car legally, stepped out with a professional camera, and began documenting police interactions in plain sight. She watched Carter stop a Latino teenager on a bicycle, his posture aggressive, his questions sharp and unnecessary. She photographed the boy's resigned expression, the look of someone who had been through this before. Within 20 minutes, Carter and Hayes spotted her. Their patrol car screeched to a halt beside her. Carter stormed out first, hand resting on his weapon. You again, he growled. What do you think you're doing? Maya continued clicking the shutter, documenting public servants in public spaces. Perfectly legal activity. Hayes stepped closer, invading her space. You're interfering with police business. That's obstruction. I'm standing on a public sidewalk, she countered calmly. There's case law that protects this right. Would you like the citations? Her calm legal precision rattled them. Carter's face reddened. He lowered his voice to a hiss. Listen, lady. I don't know what your game is, but you'd better stop. Things happen in this neighborhood. Accidents, people get hurt. Maya met his eyes without flinching. Are you threatening a civilian officer, Carter? That would be a direct violation of departmental policy and state law. The use of his name and the exact citation froze him momentarily. Before he could recover, more patrol cars arrived. Officers fanned out, forming a circle around her. Sergeant Miller stepped forward, his tone dripping with cold authority. I suggest you move along before we find something to charge you with. Maya raised her voice just enough for her camera's microphone to catch it. Are you admitting you'd fabricate charges against a civilian, Sergeant? The gathered officers exchanged uneasy glances. This wasn't their usual script. Then Daniels arrived. He looked at Maya, then at the cluster of officers. Ma'am, are you okay? He asked, his tone respectful. Shut up, Daniels, Carter snapped. She's being detained. On what grounds? Daniels asked. His rookie status didn't stop the question. What's the reasonable suspicion? The tension bristled thicker than the storm clouds above. Maya, satisfied with the evidence she had gathered, lowered her camera but kept it recording. I think I've observed enough for today, she said calmly. She nodded at each man deliberately, using their names. I'll be seeing you very soon. And with that, she walked away, her calmness shaking them more than any outburst could. Would you believe the kind of fear that spreads in a room full of bullies when the one they tried to crush walks away stronger than before? Morning sunlight streamed into the 7th Precinct's assembly hall as officers stood in formation, uniforms pressed, brass polished. The change of command ceremony had been scheduled for weeks, though whispers suggested the commissioner pushed it forward. The air was heavy with unease, thicker than any storm outside. Carter and Hayes lingered near the back, their nerves hidden behind forced smirks. Bet she filed some complaint, Hayes muttered under his breath. Won't matter. Barnes and Internal Affairs will bury it like always. Reynolds, his words sharp, his grin smug, added, already handled. Anything she tries will disappear faster than our overtime logs. Their confidence cracked the moment Commissioner Wallace entered. He strode to the podium, his expression grim, his voice cutting through the hall. Effective immediately, Captain Harris is retired. In his place, I am installing new leadership to address this precinct's failures. The side door opened. Silence swept the room. Every head turned. Maya Brooks entered in full dress uniform, her medals gleaming, her posture exact. Recognition rippled through the rows. Carter's coffee cup slipped in his grip. Hayes's face drained of color. The woman they mocked, cuffed and forced to kneel in the rain, now stood as their commanding officer. Wallace's voice rang clear. I present Captain Maya Brooks, distinguished service record, federal oversight experience, and the authority to implement reform. Maya stepped forward, her eyes sweeping the room. She paused deliberately on the faces of Carter, Hayes, and Miller. They shrank beneath her gaze, but her expression gave nothing away. Thank you, Commissioner, she began, her voice steady, commanding. Law enforcement's role is vital, but it is only as strong as the trust it earns from the people it serves. Starting today, this precinct will operate under new standards. Every interaction will be recorded. Every complaint will be investigated. Accountability will be absolute. The room held its breath. She turned another page of her notes, slow and deliberate. Bias training. De-escalation certification. Performance reviews focused on constitutional policing. Those unwilling to adapt will not remain in this department. Her eyes locked with the three men once more. Officers Carter, Hayes, and Sergeant Miller, report to my office after this ceremony. Officer Daniels as well, a murmur spread. Rivera blinked in confusion at being named, while Carter and Hayes looked at each other in silent panic. When the ceremony ended, the four entered her new office. She removed her uniform jacket, revealing dark bruises still faintly visible on her wrists and shoulder. She sat behind her desk, opened a folder, and faced them. 3 nights ago, she began evenly, I was illegally detained, physically assaulted, and humiliated by members of this precinct while conducting an observation assessment. She turned the folder, revealing photographs of her bruises, close-ups of her wrists marked by cuffs, her shoulder darkened by the baton strike. Following that incident, my hotel room was searched without authorization. I received threatening text messages. An illegal background check was run on my credentials, all traced directly to this precinct. Carter swallowed, his jaw tightening. Hayes stared at the floor. Miller's face was ashen. "Officer Daniels," Maya said, turning her gaze to the rookie. "You may wonder why you're here." "Yes, Captain," he replied, standing straighter. "You challenged improper procedure. You attempted to de-escalate a confrontation. You displayed the integrity these men lack. Effective immediately, you will lead our new community relations unit." Shock flashed across Daniel's face, but he saluted sharply and left, the door closing behind him with finality. Maya rose and walked around her desk, standing before the three remaining men. Though shorter, her presence towered over them. "I was recruited specifically for this precinct because of its corruption. What happened to me was not planned, but it gave me undeniable proof of why I am here." She tapped the folder. Every violation, every slur, every strike. Recorded and verified. The illegal search of my room was captured on hotel security. The threatening text traced to Hayes' personal phone. Their eyes widened, but she did not raise her voice. Authority flowed from her calmness. "You have 1 hour. Resign, or face administrative charges and criminal prosecution for assault under color of authority." The weight of her words crushed them. Their futures hung in her bruised hands. Outside, the precinct stirred with whispers. Internal affairs investigators arrived with boxes installing new body camera systems. Training coordinators set up classrooms for bias recognition and de-escalation. The old culture cracked as sunlight forced its way through years of rot. By noon, Miller submitted his resignation. He avoided eye contact as he packed his locker, signing a silence agreement in exchange for testimony. But Carter and Hayes dug in defiant. They entered Maya's office with union attorneys at their side. "Captain," the attorney began smoothly, "these allegations are concerning, but my clients deny wrongdoing during the lawful detention of a suspicious person." Maya did not look up from her paperwork. "Your clients are suspended pending investigation. Their badges and weapons are to be surrendered immediately." "On what grounds?" the attorney demanded. "This reeks of personal vendetta." Now she raised her eyes, steady and cold. "On grounds of excessive force, false imprisonment, filing false reports, conducting illegal searches, issuing threats, and violating civil rights." She slid a flash drive across the desk. "The evidence is extensive." The attorney hesitated, picking it up cautiously. "We'll need time to review." "You have 3 days until Friday's disciplinary hearing," she said. Then directly to the officers, "Unless you'd prefer to reconsider resignation." Carter's face twisted. "This is a setup. It's our word against yours." A faint smile touched Maya's lips. "No, it's your word against mine. The dash cam footage, my body camera, 6 civilian witnesses, and your own text messages. Let the committee decide." When they left, Daniels knocked gently on the door. "Captain, the community leaders are here for the meeting you scheduled." Maya welcomed the diverse group, seating them around the conference table. For the first time, residents faced the command staff directly. They spoke of profiling, selective enforcement, harassment that had become routine. Maya listened, asked questions, and took notes. "This won't change overnight," she told them honestly, "but it will change. You have my word." Across town, the city manager answered a furious call from the mayor. "She's tearing apart the 7th precinct. The union's threatening lawsuits." The manager scheduled an urgent meeting with Maya that same afternoon. He tried to press her for a gradual approach, but she dropped a thick binder on the table. Inside are 43 documented cases of civil rights violations, each one a lawsuit waiting to bankrupt this city. "If you want to gamble with that, be my guest. Otherwise, you'll give me full support and no interference." His protest died in his throat. Slowly he nodded. "Would you believe how fast power bends when undeniable truth is stacked against it, case by case, name by name, until silence becomes its only shield?" By Thursday, the investigation widened. Electronic records uncovered trails of altered evidence, complaints quietly erased, reports rewritten to shield guilty officers. The chain led beyond Carter and Hayes, beyond Miller. directly to Lieutenant Barnes in Internal Affairs, and further still to the retired Captain Harris who had signed off on every dismissal. The commissioner reviewed the findings with Maya, his face grim. "This is worse than we imagined." "It usually is," she replied. "The corruption isn't accidental. It's systemic. Charges will have to be considered even at the highest levels." Meanwhile, the community found its voice. Residents who had once stayed silent now came forward. Mrs. Chen, who lived across from the night of Maya's arrest, produced crystal-clear security footage showing her forced to her knees in the rain. Local journalist Sarah Winters connected that footage to a history of buried complaints, exposing a pattern of discrimination across Oakdale. The article ran Friday morning under a headline that spread like fire. "New Captain Faces Department's Bias Firsthand." The disciplinary hearing that day overflowed with citizens, officers, reporters. Carter and Hayes entered with union attorneys at their sides, their earlier bravado replaced by nervous rigidity. Maya stood before the committee, methodical and calm. She presented photographs of her injuries, dashcam clips, and Mrs. Chen's footage, every detail stacked upon the last. The attorneys attempted objections, questioning chain of custody, relevance, Maya's objectivity. Each one fell flat. Then came the witnesses, students, workers, elders, each describing harassment eerily similar to her own encounter. The pattern became undeniable. Reynolds and Hayes sat frozen as the committee delivered its unanimous decision. Termination. Referral for criminal charges. Their badges and weapons surrendered on the spot. The shield they had hidden behind shattered. As they left the room in disgrace, Carter muttered under his breath, "This isn't over. You've made enemies you don't even know yet." Maya met his gaze steadily. "That's the mindset that destroyed your career. And now it no longer holds power." The weeks that followed transformed the 7th Precinct. Internal Affairs investigators poured through files. Technology specialists installed new cameras. Training programs began. Walls once decorated with commendations now displayed letters of thanks from the community. Miller resigned under watchful eyes, avoiding jail only by testifying against those above him. Carter and Hayes faced indictments they could no longer laugh away. Barnes and Harris soon followed, caught in the web they had woven for years. 6 months later, the precinct was unrecognizable. Excessive force complaints down by more than 80%. Arrests fewer, but convictions stronger. Communities once fearful now engaged openly with their officers. Sergeant Daniels, promoted to lead the Community Engagement Unit, reported proudly on programs that bridged divides, mentorships, citizen academies, language access patrols. Residents showed up at forums not to protest but to participate. At the council meeting, Maya presented results. "Constitutional policing and effective policing are not opposites," she declared. "They are inseparable. When trust grows, safety follows." Other precincts began adopting her reforms. Journals published studies of the turnaround. Skeptical officers became believers. Even old critics admitted the department had never run better. 1 year after her arrival, Maya walked through Oakdale again, the same streets where she once knelt in the rain. Neighbors waved, stopped to thank her, invited her to events. Mrs. Chen called out from her garden, "Captain Brooks, the youth center opens next week. Will you speak?" Maya smiled. "I wouldn't miss it." She passed a shopping plaza where a familiar figure stood in a security guard's uniform. Hayes. His eyes flicked toward her, resentment clear, but he quickly looked away. She didn't linger. His downfall wasn't her triumph. It was simply the cost of his choices. Later that day in her office, she met with new academy graduates assigned to her command. Fresh faces trained under her reforms, untainted by the old culture. She spoke to them with quiet weight. "Your badge carries authority but also responsibility. How you choose to use it will define you, not just as officers but as people." She didn't share her own story. She didn't need to. The walls of her office already carried it. Photographs of community events, notes of thanks. The framed message from a teenage girl. "Thank you for making me feel safe for the first time." As the sun set, casting warm light across her desk, Maya reflected on her journey. From humiliation in the rain to systemic transformation, every bruise and every threat had become fuel for change. The work was not finished. Reform never was. It demanded vigilance, courage, and sacrifice. But the foundation was laid. a foundation built not on fear but on trust. Would you believe how one night meant to break her instead lit the fire that rebuilt an entire system? This was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning of what happens when truth refuses to stay silent.